afternoon and a warm welcome. You're watching Education News Network, and today we're bringing to you a fresh new topic of discussion. How should educators deal with helicopter parents? And for that, we have a panel of eminent educators who will be joining us in this panel discussion. So let's welcome our first panelist of the day. We have Ms. Nisha Bhakar, the Director Principal of Navyoga World School, Andhra Pradesh. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Our next panelist is Dr. Sharda Chandrasekaran, the Director of Whitefield Global School, Bangalore. Welcome, ma'am. All right. So moving on to our next panelist, we have Dr. Sonali, the Director of the Indian Public School, Tamil Nadu. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much and glad to be on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not the least, we have Ms. Preeti Kawatra, the Chairperson of Petals Group of Schools, Delhi. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
So to discuss our topic, let's invite our first panelist, Ms. Nisha Bhakar. Ma'am, what are your thoughts on helicopter parenting and how do you think educators should deal with such parents?
Okay, so I think each one of us faced a few helicopter parents while we are at school, and I feel with the with my experience, if I say that there is a distinction between being a helicopter parent and being a parent who's involved in the school. So India as a culture, we do not really engage and involve parents the way the Western world would be, because that's what you get to read. And there are some schools that I've been part of where we had children who were coming from the US, and there you get to see and hear from parents that there was a lot of engagement and involvement between the school and the parents. So I think the first is to clearly understand that is it really a involved parent or is it a helicopter parent? Now, if you only come down to being a helicopter parent, so I will not get into the how do you identify one of them, but definitely I think what has worked for us in the last so many schools that I've worked with is that when you have a very open door policies, it does bring in a lot of faith and a trust between the parent and school, which kind of pacifies a helicopter parent, because as it is, they're really excited about and very anxious about the child's learning. So schools need to be a little bit. Schools need to have a little less regimented routines where principals should be available, because generally principals like to give appointments and then they permit parents to come in. So when you welcome parents openly to the school without of course disturbing the classes, you let them walk in, you talk to them, you have a dialogue with them, you tell them what the school is all about. It could be about assessments, it could be about how many PTMs will you have, it could be about how do you teach a child, because each school these days is coming up with something new. There are a lot of fancy words also that we all love to use and parents don't generally understand them. So having regular workshops for parents where you teach or you explain the pedagogies that you follow into the classroom so that they understand how teaching learning happens. Being open to taking calls from them, and these days we have a WhatsApp, we've got emails, we've got ERP groups, so constant communication can go on. We have a dedicated lady in the school, a person in the school who is the point of contact between the teacher and the parent, because we would not want to give the numbers of our teachers, otherwise parents, most of them don't know when to draw a boundary line, and they keep bothering. And teachers don't carry cell phones into the classrooms, but parent would have an anxious call or anxiety at, let's say, 12 o'clock and the teacher is not available. So that's the time where you have a dedicated person who takes the calls of the parents, gets in touch with the concerned person and replies back to the parent within a stipulated time. I think it really resolves and solves a lot of issues. And so I think the bottom line is that there's a lot of open dialogue and communication that really helps settle helicopter parents. And through all of this, a lot of counseling happens for them very subtly, because the minute you use the word counseling, no parent believes that they are helicopter parents. So that's another problem that schools face. And we also got to be polite with the parents, so we also don't push it through. But when you do these small, so-called very subtly counseling sessions with parents, they do settle down. So that's been my experience with such difficult parents, if I call them.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So Dr. Sharda Chandrasekaran, ma'am, can we have your thoughts on the topic, please?
Thank you very much, Deepa, I think. And I'll take from where ma'am Nisha Bhaskar has left. and I want to tell a small story. Okay, it seems once there were friends, that sunlight and the cave. They became very good friends. And the sun and cave, when they became friends, the sun always spoke about light, and cave always spoke about darkness. That cave did not understand what is light, and sun never understood what is darkness. So they said that we will visit each other. So they said, oh, both of them were happy, and sun went to the cave, and he did not see any difference. Wherever it went, there was light only. There was no darkness because it was carrying the light with it. And when the cave went, cave covered the whole sunlight, and there was only darkness. So both of them came back and said that, no, I didn't see any change. You are looking like me, or you are looking like me. But then the sun thought that, okay, there is something else in this, that I am the one who is carrying the light. Afterwards, what happens, we will leave. But here I want to tell that the parents are like, this is sunlight. They think that they are like sunlight because they know everything. And they also feel that whatever I got or I did not get in my childhood, okay, whatever I aspire for, I could not get it, or I got it and I want my child to get a better one. Normally, these kind of parents become quite a lot of that helicopter parents. Now they want to set a complete path. Maybe that they all would have decided that before they got married only, I'll get married at this time, I will have a child at this time, and my child will go to so-and-so school. From there, they will go to so-and-so IIT, IIM, then America, then settle down there, then buy a car and buy a house, and then come back to India after 20 years, invest here. They would have planned and they would have got into that. They are that kind of a very well-planned parents. Now, when they come to a school, they see this and come to school. And here is a school which talks about that there is a vision and mission and objectives for the school. We look at the child's holistic development. They don't listen to all that. They listen to very selective items, what they want to listen. They carry it home. Then the problem starts because they listen what they want to listen. The school tells what the school wants to tell. Now, in between, there is a child who is actual beneficiary or non-beneficiary there, who is in trouble because of this helicopter parents, and the school which is standing very stern there saying that I told you what I want you to do. So in all these things, I'm taking up this, that as ma'am said, first thing, the parent needs counseling. And nobody accepts that I need counseling. They'll ask, do you think that I've gone nuts? You don't know to do your job. I know to do my job. See, I planned my whole life. So for them, instead of telling them, what I experienced is that I told them to be part of my PTA 1 year. One of them, who gave me so much of a gyan through and through, that how I have to run the school, everything that they told me that I'm not planned, so that he or she can help me out. So we made them the part of the PTA. Then whichever decisions we took, then he understood or she understood that it is not so easy, because we have to keep a holistic whole lot of school in mind, whole lot of children in mind. It is not their child in mind. It is the whole lot of 2,500 number of children there, and everybody's welfare in mind, the holistic development in mind. Slowly, they started opening it up. Slowly, they started understanding it is not my dream. It is my child's dream which matters. It is not a magic wand from the school which can happen, or it cannot be a magic wand from the counselor, but actually making them experience the problem of their over-intelligence is what makes them understand that we have to allow everyone to do their job. We have to stand as a facilitator, and we should allow the child to be what the child wants to be by providing a good support. And that needs a lot of work from the school and a lot of acceptance from the parent. Then things will happen. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Can we now have Dr. Sonali share her thoughts on the topic, please? Ma'am, could you tell us how educators should deal with helicopter parents?
Yes, a very good time of the day for everybody once again. And what I think is that, as the topic suggests, that, first of all, we need to identify the needs of those helicopter parents. So, as the word suggests, helicopter means they keep on hovering around the child full time. That is what it means. So, that means we need to understand that why they are hovering. So, their motivation, their needs, as Ms. Nisha also was speaking about, that needs to be understood, because they are not somebody who will harm their child or want to harm their child. They are the people who think that whatever they are doing, as my other colleague was also saying, that they think that they are the son, so they are looking after every need of the child, and in that process they somewhere are maybe like putting up their own unfulfilled wishes upon the child. So that is where I think we also as educators needs to understand. And for that, I think like there are few points which we can discover. That the first is we need to understand their motivation, why and how they are doing it. And once we understand, then we can give them that kind of a sympathy, empathy, and we can utilize them in such a way, because they are healthy parents. Basically, they are over enthusiastic sometimes, so we can engage them in our day-to-day school life, where their energies will be involved, and not only for their children, their own child, but for the other children also, it can be utilized productively by the school. That is how I keep on telling them that you are looking after one child, I'm looking after 100 children, so we need to look after you also. Come and look after them, give them that productive support which you can, or which school can take up. And after that, when we are dealing with them, I think when we are talking to them, or not the word counseling, but whenever we are listening to them, the focus needs to be on the child, not on me or the parent, but the child. So if the focus is child, automatically we need to be very strong about whatever they are explaining, okay, with that, to turn it in favor of the child, and to showcase that we are with the child. And that way, if the focus is always on the child, then yes, they will be able to understand that we are on the same side, and not like differently trying to challenge each other. Now another thing is that what I think is that we need to communicate with them with complete clarity and understanding of professional boundaries. That they also need to understand, as Ms. Nisha was also talking about, that the parents over here in India sometimes do not understand the professional boundaries and become over enthusiastic. Because my experience outside has been that if you tell the parent to come and involve in the school, help some teacher, they will only do that. But over here, the parents will start taking charge of everything around it and talking to their colleagues. They will have a personal contact with the teachers. So that is where we need to keep the professional boundaries very strictly in place. And finally, I would just suggest, like, in a brief, that, whenever we are talking to them, we as educators need to have a calm mindset and understand their perspective first, and then only try to tell what we think, or what we think is good for the child, rather than thinking about them, that what we think about them. So that is how I feel like, if we can just do a little bit of what all my, panelists have also agreed upon, completely agree with them. But this is how I think, maybe we all can sustain with our helicopter parents, so to call.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So, thank you. Now we'll have, I'm sorry, Ms. Preeti Kawatra, could you share your thoughts, please?
Hello, good evening, everyone. Once again, I think I should say my co-panelist and everyone has covered most of the thing. But as I have practiced as a parents coach in almost from last 10 years, so I will say this helicopter parent as a hyper involved parent. They think they are the best, better than the teacher, better than the principal, better than anyone else. They have done the formality to put the child in a school, but they think they are the best educator. Teacher doesn't know how to explain 2 plus 2, but she knows. And she come on the PTM and explain, ma'am, you don't know how he understands. I tell you, they are hyper involved. But somehow or the other, as a counselor, I will say, like, these parents are carrying some old baggages. Actually, in their childhood, if somebody is not trusting the child, that means child depend on someone for even thinking, for taking a small decisions. This kind of a parenting comes out to the this kind of parenting. This is a very, very old school of thoughts that we are the best person to decide. But brain research has proved that after 5 years, child develops his own likes and dislikes. Let the child decide, because whenever school gives the option whether you want to go for basketball or volleyball, child chooses volleyball because child friends are into it. But parents come on the ptm, ma'am, no, change his sports because I know he will do better in football. So sometimes parent doesn't know that the children are developing their thinking, they are developing their decision making skills. So I think we as a parent, as a teachers, educators should guide the parents that if you won't support the child in this thing, you will actually hampering the child's self-esteem. Parent are doing for the betterment of the children, but parent doesn't know that they are somewhere or the other hitting the subconscious thoughts of the child. They are sowing the seeds of non-decision maker. They are sowing the seeds of anxiety, where children's social circle will be less, where children doesn't know how to communicate their thoughts. So once teacher will help the parent to understand this thing, I think then only parent will realize. Might be some parent do bounce back, ki, ma'am, you are countering us, you are telling us that we should not do this, but we are doing for the betterment of the child. Every time parent thinks we are doing for the betterment of the child, but at the same time teacher need to listen. First of all, teacher need to make certain checklist, right? She has to listen the concern of the parent, whether the child want best in academics, whether the child want best in sports. Even sometime parents do interfere this much that they want to choose the friends of the child. Don't play with these children, play with these children, right? These children are very loud, these children use this kind of a language. So they are actually interfering in development of the personality of the child. The teacher need to listen all the concern of the parents. Then teacher need to work on the priorities. Like teacher need to tell the parent indirectly that I will take care of your child this very skill, but you need to handle this way. So parents need and teacher need to work hand in hand. Yes, these are the challenging parents, but yes, with time and with right support and the counselor support, parent understand. I think in this our school child psychologist help the parent a lot, and on ptm also we need to take session with the parent that which kind of a balanced parenting will be helpful for your child to learn better, because all 21st century skills will actually make sure that each child has to be independent enough to face the challenges of the world. So in this, teachers and the counselor need to work together to help the parents. So this is my thoughts on helicopter parenting and parents. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone, for your very valuable insights on the topic. So now we will be opening our forum for the first question of the day. So my question is to Dr. Sharda. So, ma'am, could you just take us through the key points that an educator should keep in mind while dealing with helicopter parents?
As mentioned already, first thing is that understand the parent's need, number one. Number two, that make the parent understand what the parent needs to do as a parent. And here again, I'll tell you I love to tell stories. So one small story quickly. That it's a man was walking on the road, turning his walking stick on the head like this. Okay. And somebody stopped him and said, I believe, why are you doing this? Then he said, I'm an independent citizen of an independent country. I have the freedom of movement. So the other man said, I believe your freedom stops where my nose begins. Okay. So we have to tell the parents that your freedom stops where somebody else's nose begins as far as the school is concerned, number one. Number two is that keep the facts readily available to tell the parent that this is the objective, this is the vision, this is the mission, this is the goal. We are working on this. Now, in this, you need to set in. And reminding all, we can give you an advice, but again, our freedom stops where your nose begins. So we will stand as an advocacy, whether you will continue as a hovering parent or not, but in school, we accept this, at home, your wish. That's what an educator can do. More than that, we can't do anything as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So my next question is to Ms. Nisha. Ma'am, what impact do you think such parents have on the lives of their kids?
So I think no rocket science. I guess the parents also very clearly see what impact they have on their lives of their own kids. Very very controlling. All the decisions are to be done only and only by the parent, and eventually they want their children to be ready for the so-called 21st century skills, which I think a lot of us talk about, but still there we aren't really sure of, because there could be something like a coronavirus which we have to face tomorrow. So we don't know what we are headed into. We know a little bit of it, but we don't know what we don't know. So those parents want to control even that. And if they're not going to allow their children to take basic decisions, then I'm not sure how are they going to lead their future lives, and what more can a school do about. So obviously, very, very underconfident children is what they're preparing their child to be. Extremely dependent children, and then again we're talking about a global a perspective, developing a global perspective where adaptability is something that a parent needs to think about, or schools need to think about. And we've realized that it's only people who are adaptable are the ones who generally are managed to succeed, or face any kind of eventuality that falls into their lap. So they are not preparing their children to be adaptable, because like what Ms. Preeti was also sharing, that they also decide who is going to be their child's friend. And so again, they force their child to think in a very, very narrow, constrained manner. Children don't develop perspectives, because the idea is when you interact with people, when you move out, when you fall down, is when you experience a lot of things which you only learn after you experience. So they take away the very core of experiences from their child's life. Then obviously it's going to be a very artificial life that they're preparing them for. And then I'm sure the child is definitely going to be a failure. So in a nutshell, if I say, yes, it is not as if all parents who are helicopter parents, their kids turn out to be not so great towards when they grow up. There are some exceptions, but largely it leads a child into leading a life which is not, where they're not confident, they don't know how to decide, they may be just pretending to be confident, and that again builds in a lot of other pressure. Social skills is something I guess would definitely get impacted, and of course independence and confidence. So these are some of the things which I feel emotionally I'm not too sure how stable these children would be then eventually. So not a great idea to be a helicopter parent, I guess.
Yeah, all right. So, in the context of that question only, could you tell me, when helicopter parents pay frequent visits to schools, what do you think the child goes through? Like, does it get embarrassing for the child in front of his peers?
Well, I think it's quite obvious that the child isn't so happy about it. If he is, and innately he's a confident kid, he would not uh, really like his mom and dad interfering beyond a point. And as they grow into teenagers, definitely there's a lot of resistance that they have. There are cases where we've seen children really resisting their parents coming for PTMs as well, where we have to explain to them that PTM is an area where we want your parents' engagement to be here, but they see that also as an interference. So when it comes to a teenage, it really turns out to be damaging for the child's personality. There's a lot of resistance. Obviously, I'm sure that's causing a lot of conflict back home as well. In the school, for such children, they get bullied because the other kids, they make fun of them, that your mom and dad are always there for a PTM. So it's not really the fashionable thing they feel. So there's a lot of peer pressure and bullying that gets created. So, and for the junior kids, I think, when a parent is controlling everything, I'm sure they're not too happy. They're not too happy. And they are definitely upset and not sure of themselves also. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. So, Ms. Preeti, could you tell me, in your journey as an educator, have you come across such parents? And if yes, how have you dealt with them? Can you give us one such example?
Yes, there are many incidents. I think I tell you one of the incident of elementary school, like primary school. There is a one parent who came on the PTM, and as soon as they entered the school, the child is saying hello to the friends, and the child is going here and there. But parents were so conscious about their own self-image and about the security that they were pulling the hand of the child. Come here. You are with me. Your teachers are watching. That child behavior is not important at that time, but they have taken as their own self-esteem and their own status that the child is misbehaving. Because of them, the child is feeling like why they are here. My school is my place. My friends are there. My teachers are here. But because today my parents are there, I cannot, run with my friends. I cannot go here and there and jump. Right. So parents are becoming over conscious about their child behavior and their own behavior because they are thinking what will teacher will think about them, what other parents will think about them. But parent has to understand child behavior is not there to give certificate to their upbringing and grooming, right? So parents are very conscious, they are doing and they are thinking whatever child will do will become a benchmark, see what kind of a parent they are. But it is not true. They have to understand the child is enjoying their own, children are enjoying their own childhood. They love friends, they are very comfortable with their teachers in the school. But if parents are there who is pulling them, sit properly, don't speak loudly, look at the teacher. So these are the small things from which we can judge the children are actually feel uncomfortable if you over control them, the children not feeling confident enough. And next day also, whenever principal is over, they make fun of each other parents. Your mom was pulling you, your mom doesn't allow you to come here. They were pulling legs of each other. In peer group they discuss that say, parents are not behaving well in front of children or teachers. So this is a very very difficult situation for a child sometime, which actually affect child self esteem. So parents has to understand, we understand they are behaving in this way just for their children and out of the love, but controlling child each step and the behavior is not at all healthy. So we can see many of these incidents on PTM, on our fete, on our carnivals, on our annual days. We observe these kind of parents and we can judge. Parents are thinking that they are doing for the best for their children, but it is not true. So schools need to guide the parents that you have to make your parenting as a balanced activity. It is not like you control everything from head to toe. Each smile, each laugh, each fight, each fall is important in a child life.
Thank you, ma'am. So, Dr. Sonali, could you tell us how to keep the focus on the child of these parents and what are the qualities in the child that you should work towards encouraging as an educator?
If we want to talk about the parents of these child and how to deal with them, and also how we should work with the children, I think these children also require equal amount of support as much as the parents require. Parents require listening at a different level and the child requires encouragement at a different level. Because when we talk about these helicopter parents, they will be in fact checking each and everything of the child and coming and communicating. So all as it is, as Ms. Nisha has said, that the child is already controlled completely and doesn't have anything to express by himself or herself. So it is important that we give in the classroom more opportunities for these children to express themselves, to maybe engage them in the classroom day-to-day engagements, giving them more responsible positions, a little bit of leadership, so that they are encouraged to take independent decisions day by day. And I think that will also help the parents also to understand that the child at some point of time, he or she is taking some independent decisions, and that will make them to back off a little bit. Otherwise, we have parents who will be coming before every examination they will drop them, after the examination they will pick them. And that is not only thing, they will come and talk with each teacher about what the question child has not done, why, how, why homework was not given, why, when the teacher is also telling giving the same treatment to all the rest. These parents will be kind of paranoid. But we do understand that that paranoid function could be just that the maybe the result of fear of failure for the child. They do not want their children to fail, maybe. So that is why it is important for the child also to understand in the day-to-day circumstances that sometimes you will win, sometimes you will fail, and it is all right to fail. In fact, you learn much more from your failures than you learn from your wins. So in day-to-day situation, if the child is participating in certain things and is failing, and where others are accepting it, at the same time when he is winning and others are celebrating it, that will definitely give him or her a lot more confidence to deal with parents also and the teachers also, because teachers' demand will be different, parents' demands will be different, and the child is poor thing in the center. So that is how, like, maybe the focus should be on child, to giving lot more opportunities. Child is in our hands, parents are not, unfortunately. So, child is with us, so we can do a lot more with the child than what we can do with the parents. So I will, like, if I have to stake my claim, I'll claim the children, and I'll work with them. That is what it is.
So it's important to encourage self-dependence in these children, independence.
Yeah, yes.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. So I think our last question can go to Ms. Nisha. What would be your message to the parents watching this show today, and how would you advise them to overcome being over-controlling?
Oh God, now that's a very tough question. Advising parents is a very dangerous thing and a very difficult
Yes.
thing. But I'll try to be very bold, and I'll plead to them with folded hands that eventually, you see, your kid is there with us only for a few years. We have nothing to lose and we have nothing to gain. We do it because we are in this profession and we love to do what we do. But beyond that, if you think that school can contribute a little bit, please have trust and faith in school, because even otherwise, you have no option. Even if you do not trust me, you will go to another school, you will have to eventually trust a school. So the best is, please believe that we are trained professionals. Some are great, some are not so great, but that's what life is all about. Even a parent is not a fabulous parent all the time. We all are parents as well. We've also faltered so many times, and we've moved on from there. So it's okay, like we were saying, that it's okay not to be 100% right or good. So there is nothing like a good school, but it is, if it's what you believe in, if come understand the school, if you think that you align with the larger vision and the purpose of the school, please put your child there. And then after that, keep the dialogue open, keep the channels of communication open. If you have a question, instead of talking to people left, right, and center and having a coffee table conversation, and WhatsApp is the most dangerous thing that I think we all have got into, that, please stop these WhatsApp parties and come to the school, because the school is there to help you out. Reach out to the right person. Do not talk to a driver or a conductor or anybody else. You can't talk about mathematics to a science teacher. Come to the maths teacher. She'll help you understand. And if nobody can help you understand, the principal is there to help you. And if you think even she is not able to help you, withdraw, because eventually the power lies in the hands of the parent. We don't make choices for the child to be in the school, neither can we control the exit of the child. We can only help as long as the child is with us. So while the child is with us, only thing that works is having trust and faith and open channels of communication. I think if we all do that, we will be able to create a fairly good balance, not perfect, but I think we'll largely be happy, both the sides, parents as well as the schools. Yeah. So that's a little request, not a advice or anything to the parent community at all.
Thank you, ma'am. So I know I said that was the last question, but I'm sorry. Dr. Sonali, you said something about how the energy of these parents should be used in other ways for the benefit of the school. Could you highlight on that, please?
Right. So, some of my parents, in my experience, they are always very critical of where the child should go for the field trips, field visits, or anything, or coming into the school, and also dealing with the children, group of children. So in terms of maybe storytelling, or organizing a small gathering for the students, or organizing a field trip for the students. So these are all jobs, okay, which a parent can take up from time to time if we request them. If that is a kind of a parent who is always hovering over there, we usually, what we do is, we do not give the same class to them, but we give a different section, so that at least they know that there are children who are not familiar with them, and how they behave in the classroom, and what is a teacher's job. And I have been quite successful, I should say, with my other colleagues will also agree with me that in emphasizing that the teacher is doing a really good job when they come out after 1 hour from the classroom, and then they say that I don't know how the teachers were handling these 30 children for the whole day, or 20 children or 25 children, whatever it is. So they start appreciating the work of the teacher a lot more when they are in their shoes. Similarly about the organizing also. So if small event is given to them for organizing, they will know they will have to deal with other parents, and they come to know about how difficult sometimes, not always, but sometimes the other parents can be, and how some parents will be over responsible and some parents will be absolutely disappearing from the scene. So when they understand that how it is firsthand, then they start appreciating more. So in my opinion, there are small responsibilities which the school can share without like encroaching on the in the school side or management side or in the teacher community. Those responsibilities could be given to the parents. Gradually they start understanding, and I do have a group of parents now who understands better and keeps on helping me. In fact, they will be sending mails directly that we are ready to do this kind of a thing, you just let us know. We are 4 or 5 parents and we understand them now. That is what I meant by channelizing their energy into something positive for the school.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. So we come to the end of our questions. Thanks a lot, all of you, for being a part of this panel discussion.
Thank you very much for giving all of us this opportunity to speak about this. I'm sure all of us have learned from each other such a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pleasure meeting all of you. Thank you.
Yes, pleasure. Too.
Pleasure meeting all of you.
Yes,
I just want to say a small story to conclude.
Sure.
Yeah, you all can also use, especially to the parents who are hovering. It seems there was a king and he was gifted with 2 falcons. And he gave both the falcons to his trainer and he told, make both of them fly high. So after a few days, the trainer came and said, one falcon is flying very high, the other one isn't flying at all. And he said, I don't know why it isn't flying, and went away. So then afterwards, many people came, but the other one never flew. Finally, he told the people in his kingdom, whoever can make this fly will be given a huge reward. Then one man came, and next day the falcon started flying high. The king asked the man, how could you make this falcon fly high? Then the trainer told, the new one told, I believe, nothing. The falcon is very comfortably perched on a branch, and I have cut the branch. So the falcon is flying. Now I want to tell all these parents, do not cut the branch to make your children fly. They need a branch to come back to sit on. With your over enthusiasm of guiding them, please do not cut the branch. The branch is required. The falcon will fly and forever will fly. But let us be the branches for the falcon to sit on. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. And with that, we come to the end of this insightful panel discussion. I hope we've answered most of your queries about helicopter parenting. Due to time constraints, we could only take a few questions, but if you have more questions, feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to answer them offline. For more such videos, do log on to our website, theENN.com, and don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel. For now, signing off, Nitya.